I grew up with only the two cinemas, but during the pandemic, they showed Promising Young Woman in Bloemfontein in the cinemas. But my point is, this movie, which I don't think would have gotten a wide South African release if there was a bunch of blockbusters around, got a proper window for 4, 5, 6 weeks.
As a fan of superhero films and stuff like that, you could always the main thing with Marvel movies was that you could watch this to understand the next and the next and the next. But now because they're releasing series that's only on Disney Plus, we can't keep up with what's the storyline anymore.
I would like to see maybe more opportunity for some sort of smaller films to get more recognition. Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Jaco.
And I'm Kyllian.
And welcome back to Department Spotlight. It's the show where we talk to our friends and colleagues about their experiences in the film industry. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about going to the movies and specifically pandemics and what we saw pre and post, and we'll go on to other things as well. So let's get into it.
So starting into it, what did you guys watch? What's the last thing you guys watched before the pandemic hit?
I think, if I remember correctly, it was 1917, which is a pretty good movie to be your last movie. But it was a long time ago, so it might also be Doolittle.
I think you did watch it. I think you're talking about the last time you watched movies was 1917, because that's what it feels like. And yeah, hopefully it wasn't Doolittle, because I don't think that was the best film ever.
Okay, but let me just defend myself, because I went to the movies in Cape Town with a friend. We wanted to see something else, and then it wasn't showing at that specific cinema. So it was I
just want to point out the friend that was in Cape Town wasn't me or Mark, so anyway.
No, because then I would have said, with Kyllian, with Mark.
Thanks for inviting us, man. Anyway, Mark, what's the last thing you watched before the pandemic hit?
I think it was 1917 as well. Because I remember
was it together?
Clearwater?
I think it might have been.
It might have been.
Yeah. I watched it twice in cinemas. I watched it once with you.
And the second time wasn't with me.
And then the second time wasn't with Kyllian as well, because we specifically don't invite him to watch.
No, but to be fair, before the pandemic started, you were not part of the company. It was just me and Mark making YouTube and films and stuff. And also, let's just make this very clear. Kyllian usually does not come along to movies. We've invited you so many times last year, and you just no, not last year, the year before, and you're like, no, it's too far because I live in the south.
I'll defend myself by saying what they're saying is completely true.
He lives far, and also he has a fiance.
But he didn't have a fiance back then. He just didn't want to go watch.
He still had a girlfriend.
I watched that Spider-Man movie with you once, and I watched that Spider-Man movie with you once. And technically, when we watch movies on our TV screens, it's
we've done that a lot.
Yeah.
We've watched a lot of movies on Netflix and stuff.
Yeah, but also Mark and Jaco live this close to each other, and I live here. For reference on the podcast, my hands are very far apart from each other.
If you listen.
What Kyllian's doing, he's making a visual joke in
on an audio format.
Moving on.
What was the last movie that you watched?
I watched in cinemas was Jaco, or as the English say, Joker. Joker I watched with Joaquin Phoenix. That's how you say his name, isn't it?
You watched Joker with Joaquin Phoenix?
Yes. I watched the Joker that had Joaquin Phoenix in it. Not the movie cinema. The movie had Joaquin in it. It was good. I really enjoyed it. But also it was kind of empty. I don't know, when that movie came out, I don't think a lot of people knew what it was about. And then it was empty. And then I think maybe it slowly built up in the box office.
You know what? This is a good topic as well, because even pre-pandemic, cinemas were emptying out, right? Yeah. And Mark likes to talk about Marvel a lot.
But it is talk about it as much as you guys talk about it.
But it is. But in the context that I'm getting at is Disney is responsible, I think, for a lot of cinemas emptying out more.
I think if you mean in terms of that, they only go watch a specific kind of movie or genre, and then that's where the cinemas are packed. But then when they see the poster and they're like, drama with two unknown actors.
Yeah.
Bore.
Or even two very well-known actors, but it's a slow movie.
Yeah, I actually when I was fourth year in honors, I actually wanted to write like my thesis on the only things in cinemas are sequels, franchises, and superhero films. Like I wanted to say, like that's where it looked like cinema was going, and the golden age of storytelling was moving into like long format, into series and stuff like that. And people just weren't interested in like stories that like they were the actual stories. Not saying that superhero films don't have actual stories, but I'm saying like original stories and stuff like that was kind of dying out from what I could see.
And going more into TV. I think that's cool because when you go see a movie, you have to pay like 150 Rand, right? Or in America, I don't know, like $10.
Yeah.
So it's like expensive to go see a movie. So an argument that you could make for these big movies is that they are big movies. You know, you go watch them, you're willing to spend that extra money because it's a huge thing and a lot of people talk about it. And it's like, you want to talk about it with your friends as well. Whereas if you spend that 150 Rand and your friend group isn't also people who like to watch, you know, movies at Cinema Nouveau or arts movies or whatever, then you spend that money and you're not going to talk to anybody about it, which is like part of the experience.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because that same 150 gives you a whole subscription to Netflix for a month with how many other movies from around the world. And it's interesting you say that people like will look to spend 150 on a particular kind of movie because they want to talk about their friends. But I think that's what more so also in the South African market, I think, because like if you like when we went to France, like you saw there was like DVD stores dedicated to just purely like full films that would play in Cinema Nouveau and stuff like that. And if that was a thing in South Africa, that store would last like 2 weeks. And I don't think I'm being pessimistic. I truly believe that the large majority of South African viewers, not that they don't want to watch, but I don't think they've actually been given that much exposure to that world because I don't think that the Mnets and stuff like that play those kind of films. They're more hype up. Like there's a whole channel dedicated to Fast and the Furious. And I mean, they did try it with the Sundance thing and stuff like that, but I don't think they were pushing it as much in South Africa, even our cinemas and stuff. So, and that's why I say kudos to Cinema Nouveau and places like that. But yeah, it's kind of sad that not a lot of people are into that because...
Yeah, and I mean, Cinema Nouveau's branch of Sterkinekor, which is one of the two biggest theatre chains in South Africa. And it's cool that they themselves, because New Metro, which is the other one, doesn't do that. But even Sterkinekor has, I think, three Nouveau cinemas. One Johannesburg, one Pretoria, one in Cape Town. And that's it for the whole country. But I'm curious, Mark. Tell us your take.
Well, I think that I don't mind people going to like big event cinema and stuff. I mean, a lot of them just I'm particularly not into, but I think that as long as there's always a space for the Nouveau or at least I would like to see maybe more opportunity for some sort of smaller films to get more recognition. Like I know that always the batch of like Oscar films always when they get nominated and stuff and have a lot of awards, they then break out away from Nouveau and then they start playing in the other more mainstream cinemas and stuff. And then maybe there could be like some initiative that more of a handful of films that get not only Oscars recognition, maybe the films that get recognition at other festivals and stuff also can maybe, there's like one or two of them at the more mainstream stuff as well. I think also, just from like a consumer point of view, just like variety as well. You might not be living next to a Nouveau. Like Rosebank Nouveau is just like right here for us, so we just go. But for people that don't live near one, it's also a matter of just it's also a matter of just going to the movies, and then there's only like one type of movie. And like it's okay. I'm fine with that type of movie existing. I'm not gonna say like, oh, they should never exist. But like there should be other things there as well.
No, definitely. But I think it's also interesting because I think you made that post also recently that film that's playing. I think it was your parent that made that post about the film. What's that film from Lesotho that really amazing?
Oh, this is not it's not a burial, it's a resurrection.
And like if you look at films like that, like so many people want to go watch it, but it's so hard because it's only playing I think at the Bioscope or something. Like for like
there's 2 cinemas left.
Exactly,
because people aren't watching it, so they can't afford to keep it open.
And I feel like films like that, even like when it comes to local or like films like of that nature, people outside our country will know more about that film than people this side. You know, like there'll be more hype around it, and I think that's so sad because like from what I hear, it's such a powerful and potent film. And for it to not be playing in our mainstream cinemas, I think is a bit of a tragedy. I mean, if it was good enough that it we got somewhere with the Oscars, what happened there?
It made the shortlist for the Oscars.
Yeah, I mean, for something that made the shortlist of the Oscars, not play in the mainstream from like not the country that it's like from, but like within the realm of like the place it was made, I think is really, really sad. But I also just blame like consumers who are not trying to watch more things coming from this side or trying to be made aware of more.
I read this thing. It was this thing about Netflix in South Africa. Not Netflix themselves, but like was it the government or something was gonna like regulate how much international content can be played versus South African content, right? The percentages. There needs to be more of a South African percentage. But then in the article, it was true, and it's what they're gonna do if this thing starts to, come to the fore is that they're just going to cut down the international bouquet to make the percentage. I think they should rather do
increase.
Yeah, what you're talking about with the showing the South African films or more African films in the country in South Africa is that they should do that for the cinemas. They should say that certain amount of films need to be South African films, and then you could either do like reruns of stuff, or that would create more, not pressure, but like incentive for more South African films to be there, so that you can start growing a culture like they do have in France, where then we'd start seeing more stores dedicated to different kinds of cinema.
And what you're saying isn't new or radical or revolutionary. Most countries have that thing that you're talking about, where there has to be a specific percentage. I think the issue with doing it with Netflix, like you said, is Netflix is just starting in South Africa, and if you limit that, then they're gonna take out like 80% of their catalog, because there's a percentage. It's not like a number amount. There has to be 30 productions. It's like 20%. And if you think Netflix has hundreds of shows, 20% of 1,000 is 200, and they don't have. Well, maybe they do. I'm just in theoretical terms. They don't have 200 out of 1,000 shows. For every 1,000 shows, there needs to be 200 South African shows or movies. That's crazy,
Yeah. If they aren't going to take away the international bouquet, they're going to start scrambling for getting like a back catalogue of South African stuff that is on Showmax or something, and then Showmax and Netflix are going to start like fighting against one another. So it should be incentive to and more money into the industry, rather than saying like putting these like hard and fast things and then just.
And I think that like even like you're saying incentive, and the incentive should be, I think, aimed at new, not to like sound like the older generation doesn't have a lot to offer, but I'm saying just incentives also just for like scripts and writers and directors that haven't had a chance before. Like like I'm not saying just choose any old script, but I think they should stop sending that to the same pool of people that keep making stories. Like I think there's a lot of powerful stories by undiscovered South African filmmakers, and I think that incentive should then be aimed towards that. Because I mean, just another shout out to Sub, like our Sub, like it gives a platform for people that you haven't heard of before and stuff, and you can just find those diamonds in the rough. But it's interesting, But
I wanna just mention as well, back to what you were saying about Nouveau not being close. I grew up in Bloemfontein, which there's no Nouveau nowhere. You think you're far in the south. Bloemfontein is like 3.5 hours from here. I grew up with only we had 2 cinemas. There's one Sterkinekor and one New Metro, and those were the options, right? But during the pandemic, which is where I want to sort of shift the conversation, maybe it was just because there weren't a lot of movies getting a theatrical release, but they showed Promising Young Woman in Bloemfontein in the cinemas. Don't say anything. Kyllian has this thing where he thinks that I try to put Promising Young Woman into every conversation. Because it's really good.
So good.
Every week he finds a new way to bring up this movie.
But my point is, this movie, which I don't think would have gotten a wide South African release if there was a bunch of blockbusters around, got like a proper window for like 4, 5, 6 weeks, where, I mean, there was nobody in the cinema. When I went to go watch it, this was in like December or something, it was me and my friend and like one of the staff sitting in this whole cinema. Yeah. So I don't think it was a successful run, but it got a run, which I don't think it would have. It would have just been in Nouveau, and that's it.
So talking about that, before we get into post pandemic, what were some of like your favorite content to come out during the pandemic, or like what are some interesting takes you guys saw coming out of the pandemic in terms of filmmaking?
For me, the biggest thing, and I'm a sucker for time travel. Palm Springs, dude. Like that was so good. Yeah, I think that was for me one of the best things. But it was one of the early good things that came out of the pandemic. Obviously, I don't know if it counts because it technically released at Sundance just before everything was locked down, and because it was such a it was the highest. The movie that sold for the highest amount in Sundance history. So I think that's probably why it was pushed so much. But I think that was one of the biggest things. That's when I was like, okay, things are still sort of okay-ish.
Did you watch it in cinemas?
No. That was like June, July when it came out.
Yeah.
It was on like Amazon or something.
So yeah, on your point, what you're talking about as well, like it's just about content that came out during the pandemic or filmmaking during the pandemic. I think it was interesting when Sam Levinson, the guy who was like the showrunner and did a lot with Euphoria, like created that show. He and his wife actually, they like went into like this thing with like, okay, we have this entire crew that just did Euphoria. How do we now like get them back into work and stuff because they couldn't get back onto the show? So they kind of got back into this vibe. Okay, like what can we write for the pandemic so that we can shoot during the pandemic that can be safe and still give these people back their jobs? And then they made Malcolm and Marie, which I thought was interesting. And they like, I mean, you can kind of tell it's like a film that wasn't like really written over a couple of years. Like it was something you could see that was just made for that. But I think it was really nice to see that there were some filmmakers that were just making content purely so that their friends could get back onto set and work around those kind of situations. So I thought that was something really interesting to come out of the pandemic. And then you saw the opposite end of it where like people were also like had bigger films, like that thing that happened with Tom Cruise where he just lost his mind with I think like I can't remember what it was.
Mission Impossible.
On Mission Impossible, where like he was just like, no, I don't want to ever see you again on the set because they were standing too close to each other or something.
Yeah, he said he doesn't want to see that behavior again.
Oh yeah, but didn't he like?
Yeah, no, he was like screaming at it. But I think that, I mean, I don't know Tom Cruise at all, and I don't want to like stick up for him or whatever, but I think there's so much pressure on him because he produces his movies as well. And like they were like one of the first big crews to like start filming again. So like any sort of small thing would get shut down, you know. So I think there's like a lot of pressure on him. I mean, he did definitely overreact, but at the same time, like
he pulled a full Christian Bale on that. But I think that's interesting. Also, another topic to just talk about is like how many films had to like just stretch out over like the like production was going to be like 6 months and then COVID hit and then production went on to be like over now 2 years. Like so many films had to be put on hold. Like we've been waiting for the 007 film. Almost every Marvel piece of content, Marvel had to reshuffle a lot of their stories and how they told their stories. The Batman movie also with Robert Pattinson, that thing's been like shooting, then someone gets COVID and then like, you know, so I think it's interesting also to see how it's like affecting bigger productions and the studio's pockets in that way. Because I mean, this the thing that happened with 007 is basically almost destroying MGM. Like I think they got bought over now or something like that by Amazon or something.
Really?
Yeah, Amazon bought them because they couldn't, because that movie was meant to make its money back so quickly. And then if you look at the effects it had. But now finally films are coming back to cinema. Like I know Disney for Marvel, they released a thing that like a whole campaign with all the films saying get back into cinemas with like a thing showing all their films.
One movie that was on streaming during the pandemic was I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the Charlie Kaufman film. But that wasn't, it was kind of difficult to think of examples that were like, because that was shot before the pandemic and then they obviously went into post and then released it during.
But did they make it specifically to go onto streaming or was it supposed to go on theatrical?
It was a Netflix film. But I think it did.
But Netflix, would get theatrical runs.
Did get a few.
So moving on, what was the first movie that you saw when theaters were opening up?
That's an interesting one. So mine was actually pretty special. Well, not the movie, but like the incident. So basically, my girlfriend at the time. Well, like you say, like we broke up, but she's my fiance now. So she kind of planned like this whole day for me, like a surprise day, and then it ended with us watching Wonder Woman on my birthday for the thing, which I mean was a pretty good movie. But yeah, but yeah, that was the first film, and I couldn't really gauge the size of the audience in it because we watched it in one of those prestige things where it's like only 10 seats kind of thing, and there was actually like 3 or 4 people in, but I think it's because it was December holidays.
Yeah,
and that was my first, and it was like just really nice to just go back into a cinema. Cool. Relax, eat popcorn, and watch a movie again.
That's cool. I mean, that's quite late, actually. Yeah. Like, me and Mark, we went to go see Tenet when cinemas just opened. Right? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We did invite Kyllian for that one. He didn't want to come.
It was the movie that was supposed to bring everyone back to cinemas, but like way too early.
Way too early.
When did it come out?
Christopher Nolan lives in a bubble.
It was like September, I think, and South Africa just moved down to lockdown level 3, I think, which was the first time that I could actually leave Bloemfontein and come back to my apartment. Because originally lockdown was going to be 3 weeks, so I only packed for 3 weeks of clothes, and then I didn't have any winter clothes, stayed there till like September. Then when I came back to sort of pack my things because I was moving out of that place, Mark was like, let's go watch Tenet, because back then it was like, this is going to be the only movie that you can watch besides Trolls. Trolls World Tour. It's the only thing that we could watch, and it's a Christopher Nolan movie, and it's like a big thing. His movies are usually really, you want to see them in a cinema because they have the sound and whatever. Turned out to be a huge disappointment.
You should have watched Trolls.
I know, because like a lot of people say when they went to watch it, they should have called that tetanus or something because of how bad the sound was.
Dude, at least we would have been able to hear Trolls. Because, oh my word.
Yeah, because I watched it on streaming, and it was just the most, like I was so disappointed. But like, I've slowly been disconnecting from Nolan, since Dunkirk. They're all good films, but I feel like it gets a bit too pretentious with him, if that makes sense. And sometimes he just doesn't want to explain anything. And even in that movie, when they ask the explanation, the woman's like, no, it's just too complicated to explain. You're like, so you're just gonna let us just go in.
No, but even in Tenet, you didn't watch the whole thing. There's these scenes, exposition scenes, where he just explains things for 10 minutes.
The worst scenes.
And they're just talking. They're not showing.
I wasn't a fan, but
they don't speak like humans. They just say things to
one another. And scenes just happen in that movie.
Yeah, things happen in that movie. That's it. It's a movie where things happen. I don't know what.
I really enjoyed the concept, and I followed it pretty well because of I did my thesis on time travel movies. So. But so that's me being pretentious. But so I did follow the story, but I do agree still that it was not.
But I think just on that as well, just talking about Christopher Nolan, what happened with Warner Brothers at that same time when they decided, because it wasn't still hard lockdowns, but since Tenet and since people's not going to cinemas and stuff, let's release everything on streaming.
Yeah.
Simultaneously without consulting the filmmakers. Yeah. Or I don't know,
so they said
to anyone.
No, so they just decided to release the whole 2021 slate on streaming at the same time as a very short theatrical run. Obviously, I don't know if America is even open, the theaters are even open yet, I don't know. But they are. Okay, so but our theaters open pretty early. But so we don't have HBO Max, so we only get the theatrical run, but in America they just, without consulting the people who made the movies, without even considering contracts and everything, they're just we're just gonna put it all on streaming. And then a lot of filmmakers, including Christopher Nolan, this is actually the craziest thing to me, because Christopher Nolan has always been a big proponent of Warner Brothers, right? I think he's made his last 10 movies with Warner Brothers. And then on the day that the next day, after they made the announcement, this is the best. I'm going to put I might be misquoting this, but I'm going to put the actual tweet here. He said, a lot of us went to bed last night thinking we were working for the best studio, today we woke up and we realized that we are working for the greediest one.
Yeah. No, but like I was like also because I think you showed me that, and I was like, but it's true though. Like it like not because I know that he's also a big advocate for watching movies in cinemas and stuff like that, and I think it just hit him hard because the main thing for them was like, okay, we're starting HBO Max. How do we draw people away from Netflix and stuff? Oh, let's put our whole slate on here, and I don't think it was actually for the sake of making convenient for people. I think it was more of an attraction kind of thing, you know, and I think that's where you were like. No, that was just like such a hurtful thing to do.
They stuck to their guns as well. They're still doing it.
They're still doing it. I mean, we also like they released Justice League only on there, and we tried everything to try and watch it. We tried to get a VPN, but then we need a minute. So like, I also feel like for a lot of streaming services and stuff like that, or like also like for those kind of things, I feel like it's also a thing where just Americans could watch certain content.
I mean, it did eventually. Like it's on like DSTV now.
Is it?
Yeah. It's like on catch up. It's available in South Africa somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where, but it is available now. But it's like later, which I mean that we're used to that. Like we always get things later.
Exactly.
But in this, I think in the pandemic, we got so used to. As soon as Netflix releases something, it's released everywhere. You know, we got used to HBO shows like
on Showmax.
like Game of Thrones being released at the same time on Showmax as it was
released at the same time
in America. Exactly. So we got used to that, and now we're like, oh, right, we're a third world country.
No,
right.
but that's also now my gripe with. Okay, it's not really talking about pandemic, but just my issue in general. With Disney Plus is that like it's so hard for us because now there's completely new content that we can't watch at all kind of thing. And for me, like as a fan of superhero films and stuff like that, like you could always like the main thing with like Marvel movies was that you could watch this to understand the next and the next and the next. But now because they're releasing series that's only on Disney Plus, we can't keep up with what's the storyline anymore. We have to like like see where we can try and get like this website's here, we can try this and try and find the most ways, like the certain ways that are legal to try and watch it. And like they aren't, like they really aren't.
The best way that I found though is if you get a VPN, you can sign up for YouTube TV, which is only, I don't know if it's just in America, but using the VPN, log on to America, sign up for YouTube TV, and then you can add HBO Max and add Disney Plus to your subscription. But now it's like you have to pay a bunch of extra money just for YouTube TV, and then on top of that, they take their commissions for HBO Max. It's a whole thing.
And I have a lot more to say about it, but I don't want to get political about it on this thing. But I just thought that they really need to just at least show some effort, because from the articles I read, like they don't really have a plan for getting to Africa and releasing stuff this side. So I think that's just one of the...
That's such a good point.
Yeah,
please still hire me one day for a superhero movie. But I made it
shows that you care.
Because I made a tweet about this as well, where I was just like, do you get you have the movie like Lion King and that film about chess, the Queen, I can't remember about it, but it was like a film, where it's about this chess player in Kenya, I believe, as well. And you have like Black Panther and all these things, and you have these movies that tell our stories and like use
African
stories, and you have like and you're making so much money off of it. Like Black Panther made so much, but then when it comes to trying to bring that content back here, you don't have a plan for it, and you release things first there. And like they're even having like a Black Panther TV series and all of that coming out that's going to go for Disney Plus, but we can't even watch that in Africa. So I just thought that was kind of like a bit of a douchey move, that they don't try to even try to make a plan to try to release it here and try and make those same stories available here that they like kind of mind in terms of stuff like that. So for me, I'm sorry, but for me it was kind of a personal topic that I just get really angry, because I love keeping up with Marvel things, but now you're literally excluding me from trying to also keep up with the storylines, because I love comic books and stuff like that. And for me, it's just really, because now I can't even watch my favorite YouTube channels because they're discussing all of those things. And it's like big spoilers for me and stuff.
I want to say controversial. We're probably going to cut out, but like it's colonialism. It's literally taking African stories out of Africa and keeping it in
exactly.
America.
And like we want to be nice about it, but it's flipping upsetting, like for me, like truly, like I really want to keep up with certain things. And then you're like literally excluding us, and you're not making like big steps towards bringing in GFRs to watch, or at least saying, okay, well, we made a deal with this, or we made a deal with this. Like at least HBO did that with the Showcase, with the Showmax and stuff like that. So I just really, it's something I was a bit angry about.
Yeah.
But
That was a very important point, very interesting point. I hope someone there hears it, because it's like ridiculous. Film experiences in cinemas when I was like, okay, watching movies in the cinemas is like back now. Whereas when we watched Tenet, I was like, could have not watched that. Was when we watched The Father.
Oh.
Watching that in cinemas was amazing. And A Quiet Place Part 2, we watched it in IMAX.
Yes.
I was like, yes. This is why we go to the movies.
Just for the record, we have invited Kyllian every time since we went back. Kyllian doesn't want to go with us. So
yeah, it's funny you guys watch such like great films in cinemas. I think I've just watched things that are a bit of stinkers. Like last thing I watched was King Kong versus Godzilla.
oh, hectic.
Yeah, there's so many problems. Like I've actually know a lot of people like, oh, that movie is amazing, that movie is brilliant, and I was like, no, and like
Different strokes, man.
I just want to ask before we end things, like how many people were there in like A Quiet Place 2? Like did it give some revitalization?
There
to
was
the thing?
5 people.
Yeah. It was a quiet place.
But you watch it on the
Puns. Because I know my aunt went to go watch it on a Friday night in the cinemas, and she said it was just her and her partner and no one else. And I was like,
So I want to end it off by saying I've seen like quite a few movies. Because in Bloemfontein there's usually nobody in the cinemas. And and with the pandemic there was like nobody. So I went to go watch movies in the cinemas pretty often if there was something good. Or like I also watched Songbird, which is that movie that they made about the pandemic, which is trash. Because there was something else that I wanted to watch. It wasn't. Anyways, what I want to say is like go back to the movies. It's pretty safe. People go to restaurants. And they sit next to each other, like tables are close. There's this one restaurant in Crystal Mall that's like in the middle of the like hallway of the mall.
you're talking about.
I hate this restaurant because it's like in the middle of the hallway, so people have to like go around the restaurant in this like tiny little corridor, and then the people in the restaurant are sitting. It's packed. It's like side to side, and then there's no like covering. People they're at a restaurant, so they're safe now. No masks. People, but if you're like walking next to them, then you have to wear your mask. But like just on the other side of this tiny little, like it's not even a fence. It's like a little pole, and then no, you're safe in there. You're not safe. Go back to the movies. It's kind of expensive, but I guarantee you, it's much safer than going to a restaurant.
And with the rows of people sitting behind and in front of you, and the spaces on either side of you, you're going to be more socially distanced than you are in a packed restaurant.
Exactly.
So it's like more, and it's a place that gets cleaned after every single screening.
Exactly.
So go back to.
I mean, if you're using that money for the weekend to club, I would say rather, because I mean that's pretty packed, and I've seen so many people like wearing out masks and stuff in there. Not to say anything about clubbing or anything like that, but I'm just saying, then the cinemas are really safe and they've really taken so many precautions. So I'd say if you were going to use that money to maybe go out and party and be in a bit more danger, I'd rather say go to the cinemas. It's much safer and it's still a good night out and entertaining. And I think the industry really needs it right now.
So the whole of Sterkinekor is in business rescue now, not just Nouveau or anything. The whole company is in business rescue, and they're having drive-in and Santon trying to make back some money. And the movies aren't particularly for me, but please go and just go back to the movies. Because then if they go down, then that's not just the smaller movies that won't be seen, as we were talking about earlier, it's everything.
I don't know if we've explained this before, but Sterkinekor is like one of the biggest like theatre companies in South Africa for the international listeners out there. So it's a pretty big thing if they go into business rescue. It's them and you Metro, they kind of are the biggest right now. And I see At Movies is also one of the ones coming up, but just for context.
Yeah, definitely. Go to the cinemas, support your local cinemas, and
your local films.
and some local films.
Go back to the Bioscope as well. They're having screenings, they have special events as well.
The Bioscope in Johannesburg.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So thank you guys so much. I think we said a lot of important things, a lot of interesting things. I think the pandemic has taught us a lot of things. as filmmakers
And as audiences.
and as audiences. Exactly. Thank you so much for watching. We recently started a membership program here on YouTube, so there's a little join button down there if you want to support us. You probably saw like our podcast don't get a lot of views as
Or
much
listens. A lot of listens.
as our or listens on Spotify. Which you can go check out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else that you listen to your podcasts. But if you want to support us in continuing to make things, you can do that one of two ways. You can either click the join button, like I just said, and choose a tier. Doesn't matter which tier you choose, we would really appreciate even just the 20 Rand a month one. Or you could go to sup.co.za and watch our films on that platform. It's 50 Rand a month, but we get a lot of that money, so helps us out quite a bit.
And it's not just our films. You'll be helping out lots of other South African independent filmmakers.
Yeah. And my film also just got recently added on there, so check it out. And if you don't select a tier, we might get our own tier. So.
And also you can just do the subscribing. You can also do a share. Share's pretty good. Get more views, get more eyeballs. More eyeballs means more support. More support means happy look pictures.
Also, if you just watch ads, if you turn off your ad blocker, that helps us quite a bit.
Yeah, come on with the ad blocker, guys. Don't do it. It's 5 seconds of your life. Seriously.
So please smash that like button. And until next time, go out there, stay safe, and make your movie.